What I'm going to tell you about is the Danish experience of starting a JetNet in Denmark. First, it's a bottom-up process. We didn't have any national STEM platform or national goals in the area. First, I'm going to just introduce the House of Natural Science, where I come from. Just a bit about the Danish education system and the Danish labor market, how we transferred JetNet from the Netherlands to Denmark. What do you think are the key factors for success? Now, it's been a year ago. We can look back and see about evaluate on the first year. What were the successes and setback? And of course, you can be free to ask questions during my presentation, but also afterwards. A bit about my background. I have a master in biology and a master in business administration. I started my career as an ecotoxicologist in the Danish Ministry of Environment, evaluating and risk assessment of chemicals. I've also worked in other public authorities. I've had different positions in industry. And this is me on top of a wind turbine. I'm not going to jump, I'm just enjoying the view. I've worked in the wind turbine industry in Denmark and business development in the clean tech sector. And now I'm the director of the House of Natural Sciences. In the House of Natural Sciences, you can see it on the picture. It's a round house. It's a very beautiful house. Please visit us if you have the opportunity. Our focus is we are a non-profit organization. We were based on a triple helix cooperation between public authorities, private sector, and education institutions that they all said, well, we need more STEM education, more STEM students in Denmark. We need more interest in STEM. We need more students to choose a STEM career. And what we focus on in our house is that we do that, try to increase the interest for STEM during applied-oriented science teaching and school-industry collaboration. We like to tell the students, well, what's STEM useful for? How is it used in real life? We like them to meet role models from real life. What we do is in our house, we have a science teaching laboratory, and we develop new practices of teaching. We have activity house. You can come to us with your class of students, and you can have try different kinds of things. They're all very close related to the curriculum, so that typically you prepare from home, then you come on a day visit and do activities, and then you go back and do more things at home in your school. We also facilitate school-industry collaboration in JetNet, and that's what I'm going to talk more about today. Just a short introduction to the Danish education system. The first 10 years you go in primary school, then you go to secondary school, and then to vocational training and universities. We focus in JetNet on the students that have the age of 12 to 18 years. And we do that because in that age group, they are making some very important decisions about their future careers. And we'd like to show them some pictures of a STEM career. The Danish labor market, employment in the private sector, we have a lot of employment in building and construction. We are also very strong in the food sector. We are an agricultural country, and we have a lot of industry in connection with that. We also have ICT, transport, healthcare, and a lot of clean tech industry. In Denmark, we have a flexicurity model, as we call it. So it's easy to hire and fire people. But when people are laid off because of changes in the demand in industry, we have a security model that kind of society held the hand under them so they can still have economic security. Well, why is JetNet important? Well, I think we all agree about it in that room, and a lot of people said about it. We also have some analysis in Denmark made that there will be a lack of STEM professionals in the future. And then together with that, we have studies from a relevance of science education that show that the students are not very interested in science. And there's a tendency that students in the developing countries, they're very interested in science, but many of them do not have the opportunity to take a science education. In the wealthy countries, not many students are very interested in science. You are actually on the top of us. Denmark is next to the bottom, as you can see on the graph. We are very low. You're a bit higher than us, and that was also what your Deputy General said earlier. In Denmark and in a lot of other countries, we also have this difference between boys and girls. There's a tendency that more boys are interested in STEM than girls. We also try to focus on that in JetNet. Well, why is school-industry collaboration interesting? Well, we can answer the questions that students ask. Why should we learn STEM? Why is it important? We can give them examples from real life, how you use STEM knowledge. And we can add context to the STEM subject in school. So if you have a STEM subject, we can say, well, here's examples from real life. And we can show career opportunities. We can show them role models. We can let them meet role models from companies so that they can get a picture, a future of how it would be if you choose a STEM education. And then, of course, also we can show how science can change the future. A lot of companies around Europe are now making research into clean tech and how should we do to make a sustainable future. And if you choose a STEM career, you can really make a difference in that area as well. So that's also, I think, a positive thing to show the pupils. This is a graph that the communication director of Siemens in Denmark made. All the boxes show all the weeks that he went to school. He's a very well-educated man. The yellow box is the 1 week he went to visit a company. And I think this illustrates that he can still remember that. It made an impression. I have the same feeling. I can remember the 2 companies I visited during my time in school. So it's also a message to industry to say that, well, for a quite small effort, you can actually make a lasting impression in students' minds. So it's really worth doing that. Well, we looked at the Netherlands, and we were very impressed with the JetNet and the 10 years of experience. We also did school-industry collaboration in Denmark, but it was more fragmented and more on a local scale, and we really like to do it on a national scale like they did in the Netherlands. So we looked on how to transfer that to Denmark, because it's 2 different countries, and maybe some experiences we can use, maybe some we can't. A bit about the process. There's been a lot of people who traveled to the Netherlands and learned about their experiences for JetNet. A pilot project were made, funded by the Ministry of Education, where Danish Science Factory was in, House of Natural Sciences was in. We made a study, a more detailed study tour, and wrote reports about and analyzed how can we transfer that to Denmark. Then we went to 2 of very old and family-owned big Danish companies, Grundfos and Danfoss. And they were very enthusiastic about this approach, because they also think that the STEM agenda is very important, and they will really need employees with these competences now and in the future even more. Then, of course, to do that, we needed some funds to start the JetNet, and we got that from the Danish Industry Foundation. And then we started JetNet. So it's quite of this is also to tell you that it's a long process, and there's a lot of more detailed steps in it that I didn't go into. It took 3 to 5 years from we started the process to we actually could say, well, now we have a Danish JetNet. Well, what do we do in JetNet? Well, it's a national network. So we try to say, to gather around the table all of the different examples of school-industry collaboration in Denmark and say, well, now we can work together, we can learn from each other, and we can put school-industry collaboration on a national agenda. But the very core of JetNet, also as Sebastian told it, and I think it's very important because that's what makes it doable, is that the core of it is the local one-to-one collaboration between schools and company. So a local company works together with the local school. It makes it very easy because the distance are not very far. They maybe know each other beforehand. So all these local one-to-one collaborations, they can join together in this national network. They can share experiences, and we make some national events to make visibility about that. We launched the first national events in June, and we make it. We made it on the national TV news channel and in the papers, and a lot of people were very interested in that. And it was also a chance for the companies and for the schools to get some publicity, say, well, we're doing something extraordinary, we're doing something extra to put the teachers, well, the main focus for them is to put some more real content into the STEM education, and for the companies, it's really about taking responsibility and say, well, we take responsibility for our future employees, that's why we do this. Now we are organizing Girls' Day in Science. We try to focus on girls and their interest. Of course, girls should not be should not be forced to make a STEM career. But I think a lot of girls tend to say, well, STEM, it's not for me. Maybe also there's a tendency that teachers say, well, STEM, they have a more focus on boys and their interest. So we're doing a lot of things. In our house, we are gathering 150 girls at the age of 15, and they're going to meet 20 role models from different companies around Denmark. And we'll have physics shows. They'll meet women that study physics. They'll meet girls from high school or from gymnasium that have chosen for STEM subjects. So, and the Ministry of Equal Rights and the Ministry of Education are also involved in this event. And I think it's important to have these events to make some publicity about it and to make the people proud of being part of something bigger. And you could set, and that's what you can do when you're a national network. You can set an agenda more than you can if you're just doing it on a local scale and you're not part of something bigger. Right now we have 20 companies and 9 secondary schools, upper secondary schools, and 9 primary schools. We haven't matched all the companies with schools yet, so of course there'll be more schools joining. This figure is quite complicated, but what it shows is that it's very important to be rather thorough when you start this collaboration between school and industry. And I also think it's important to say that I think it's very important that there's someone that can do the matchmaking between school and industry, because school culture is very different from industry culture. And I think it's important that there's someone that can bridge that culture. That's what we do in JetNet, in House of Natural Sciences. We do the matchmaking, we try to bridge the culture. So we find the schools and the industry that can collaborate together. We help them make a binding agreement on what they will do together. And then we make them do the matchmaking, because the schools, the companies, they have maybe some STEM cases from their companies, but how do you fit that into the school's curriculum? That's not very easy. And then you also have the different culture between school and industry that you also need to bridge. So it's important to have someone that can facilitate that process. And then, of course, also follow-up and evaluation is very important, so you can do it even better the next time. The one on the right, the green one, shows that it doesn't take that much effort from industry. You can actually put content into the curriculum with a quite small effort. If you give the students a case from your company that fits into the curriculum, you can make them work on the project. They can come visit you, get more, ask questions, get more information about the case. They can go home, work more, and then they can go to your company and make a presentation on how they solved the case. It makes it really good for the students and for the teachers because they get a case from real life and they get feedback from real life. And it doesn't take that much effort from industry. Of course, industry could also choose to adopt the class or adopt the school, but we recommend them to start with the small cases, with the successes, and then as you get more experiences, you can be more ambitious about what you do. We have 20 Danish companies now. We just had IBM joining. They are not on the list right now, but they just joined, and they're having hosting the first Girls' Day also, where the Ministry of Education will visit them. So we are very glad that they're here, and it's nice to have IBM people here today as well. And it's also the message the same as Sebastian said. We also have very small companies joining JetNet. And for them, it's even more important that there's someone that can facilitate and help them get started with this. But I think it's important also to have small and medium-sized companies doing school industry collaboration because they are a very important part of the labor market. Well, the key factors for success in Denmark is that I think it was that we got support from the leading top industry CEOs because that gave us credibility and that gave us access to other CEOs. So it's much easier for one CEO to go to another CEO and say, well, we're doing this, we think it's very important. It's much more effective than if I come there and say, well, I think you should do this and this. And then, of course, the funding. We heard about a lot of billions and billions from the Netherlands. We actually have around 500,000 euros for 3 years doing that. So it's not takes a huge funding. It's not necessary when you start up. And also, I think to have access to the experiences from the Netherlands was very important from us. We had some study trips in the start, as I told you before we started, but also just this summer we visited them again, and having been doing JetNet in Denmark for 1 year, we had new questions and more questions, different questions, so it's been really a good experience from us. I also think a key factor for success is to make binding agreement between the school principal sign and the CEO signs, so they really commit, you have top-level commitment. Because if it's only depending on an employee at a company that thinks this is important, then if the employees leave, then there's maybe a lack of commitment from the company. So it's very important from the start to have a top-level commitment. I also think that link to curriculum of the schools are very important because the schools have a very comprehensive curriculum, so it's difficult to fit things in that don't fit into the curriculum. It's difficult to find time to do that. And also, as Sebastian told, learning by doing is very important. It shouldn't be just a tour to the company, show the company, show a PowerPoint, get them soda and they can go home. It's very important that they actually get some hand-on activity. They get a case that they can work on. They get something to do because that's what really engaged them into STEM. And I also, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's a key factor for success that there's someone that can organize that can facilitate the collaboration, get them started, help with the matchmaking, someone that understands both industry culture and school culture. Well, our successes is, I think we had a strong industry commitment in Denmark. We have now critical mass. We have 20 companies. That's important because when you're at the start and you only have maybe 5 or 6 companies, people look at you and say, well, it's not really a national network, or when will it be that, or we'll wait and see. And now we are all around the country in all 5 regions in Denmark, so that's important to get across that step to critical mass. We also went into the media, the national media and the newspapers, and I also think that's important to get more companies and schools to join, but also to set an agenda about this is important to do. And we have had strong interest and strong support from various industry organizations, employer organizations, from ministries. But what I would have liked to have from the start is also a more direct involvement from government, as they had in the Netherlands. I think that could have been made us even stronger from the start. And also, if we have had some national targets for STEM or for school industry collaboration, that could also have made our start even stronger. So that was what I had to say. So please feel free if you have any questions. Yeah? Me again. Yeah, please.
Thank you. There was a very interesting, well, first of all, thank you very much. It was quite an interesting presentation. There was a particularly interesting graphic that surprised me, where we learned that the poorer the country is, the more interested in STEM children are, which is quite a surprise for me, really. Well, Denmark is obviously not a poor country. We learned from Kim's and Mikkel's presentation that according to OECD, isn't it, there is a direct link between STEM employment, STEM jobs, and national GDP per capita. So there must be something along the way that happens in Denmark to engage children in STEM areas. Would you have any ideas on what that is?
I think what the graphic showed, it was about the low competences in maths and reading, wasn't it, the graph you showed? Also, yes. Yeah. And I think the problem with the poorer countries is that even though they have an interest in STEM, they don't get the chance to get the education. And in Denmark, we have all the opportunities for people to get a STEM education. So that's true. We have STEM people, and I think also the interest in STEM has been decreasing. So in the earlier days, that's also why we have the retirement issues, as Michael told you. We have a lot of old, or quite old, engineers that will leave the labor market in 5-10 years. And also a lot of teachers, a lot of STEM teachers will leave the labor market in 5 to 10 years. And then, so I think we had a higher interest in the earlier days than we have now. Yeah. And of course now the advantage is that everyone that's interested in STEM can get in a STEM education, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah?
just a bit to answer a bit your question, this looks quite paradoxical, but in fact literacy is not the same as taking a career. You can have people who have a very high literacy on mathematics or language, but they are not wanting to take up sciences. And this is a problem that most European countries, not exactly Portugal, because in Portugal, as far as we understand from, for example, Eurobarometers, there is a large interest in science and technology, because people have the perception that science and technology are associated to development, to economic development, to a better life, etc. So we are, in that aspect, we are a bit with the developing countries and the undeveloped countries. European countries have, sometimes there is even a correlation where the countries where there is more literacy, there is more rejection of scientific careers. And that has to do with other factors. And that's why the European Commission now is developing this responsible research and innovation, etc., that science should be co-developed with the population, that it should be done, all the process of science, it should be done in an open way, and to promoting debates with society. Because in these societies, sometimes people are a bit afraid of the risks associated, for example, of OGMs, whatever they are, or biotechnology, or nanotechnology, etc. Whereas in these countries where literacy is lower, they don't even have heard about those risks. They want to make better life for them, whatever that takes. And the other people have a strong impact of industry, and the impact of industry in the first developing years was not really easy from the environment point of view, etc., etc. Of course, the situation nowadays is completely different, but there is this gap that we have to fulfill, and this is in a great part of our activity. For example, Sensiviva now is about this, is about clarifying and taking this discussion to the society, to get inputs and to make it in an open way, bridging this gap between scientists and society and companies. Okay.
Okay, thank you.